Hello and welcome to another free code session. My name is Jason Bach, and I finally got the obsolete thing resolved mostly. It actually uncovered another bug, which was really strange, but I got everything done. There were some hiccups that I found out. One of them is if a constructor is obsolete, then the instance methods that I generate are also calling it. And that led to some issues. So I had to basically handle that. Wasn't too big of a deal, but I needed to do that. There was one issue that came up with attributes. This was a fun one, where because I put the obsolete attribute on the type, and then I also had to change how I'm emitting attributes because I was putting all of the ones that were on the type onto the mock type, and that led to a whole bunch of other issues. And I'm like, nope, I only need to care about if it's an obsolete attribute or something like that. But some messages that people put in obsolete attributes have special characters in them, like /n and whatnot, /t. And I was not emitting that right, which was causing a whole bunch of issues in certain cases. So finally figured out how to get around that. And then I finally got down, there was a couple of other obsolete issues that came up and I could just suppress those. Just like the whole point of this issue is that you could suppress some of these things. And so I just added them to the list in the CodeGen project. But there was one error that actually came up. I think I have it here. And this one, yeah. So I'm not doing that one now. I will do it in the future, but I decided this only happened in one type. And it hadn't shown up before, which is kind of weird because none of these had anything to do with obsolete. So I'm like, I don't understand why I didn't see this before. And I didn't update any of the packages, I don't think. So whatever. What happens here is in Top Shelf, there is a type, I forget what they call it, Top Shelf Console Trace Listener. I just called it Subtracer here. But they override it. And as you can see, some of these, they change the nullability on them. Well, that is a warning in and of itself. And that's a warning to the listener is if you do something like this, you really shouldn't. This will show up as a warning and that you shouldn't change the nullability values of the parameter types. By the way, I don't know if you can see it or not, but my son is in the backyard raking leaves. So if you see movement back there or if you hear something in the background, that's him. Anyway, you shouldn't do this in the first place. And I looked through my code briefly and I thought I have in my method matcher that I don't look at nullability. So I'm not sure why this is happening other than the only thing I can think of is it's not picking up the array correctly here. Okay, I'm not being, I don't know if I'm actually looking at the type of the thing that the array is. I might just be looking at the whole array type. This also leads to what happens if I pass in generics. You know, I'm going to have to be careful with that as well. So that's my guess is that's why my matcher isn't working in this one case here. So because what it should do is say, oh, this is the one that you're going to pick. And I think if you do this in Visual Studio and you say override on like a mock tracer that inherits from subtracer, then it would pick this one to say that's the one you want to override, which would make sense. Okay. But again, you shouldn't do this in the first place. But as the developer of Rocks, I don't have a choice and I don't have the authority to tell you this is wrong. You shouldn't do it this way. I just need to be able to handle it. So that's a bug that I'm going to hopefully fix, I think in 7.2.0 and just resolve that one and include that. But the one I want to get to right now is one that somebody on my team found. And I think I was just making an update on the comment here. So I'll put that in. So basically the problem is this is I'm sorry. It's really that, although I also found another problem, but this is the real problem. The problem is I think I'm looking at the return type and I say, oh, that's not a generic. So there's no arguments coming in. And so basically I don't loop through the method handlers array and do is casts to, and I do that in other cases, but not in this case. I think it's because I just look at this type. I don't look in the fact of, oh, the T here is relevant, is this T. That's a parameter to the method. So there's two things I need to do. I need to be able to handle the parameter and return types to see if they are generic or they're using a generic parameter. And then I'll do, I must be doing the logic in there somewhere to pick this up. I just need to dive into the type itself and say, do you use any of the type parameters anywhere? And that would go for parameter types and also a return type. So that's the first thing. The other thing is if there's no input. Okay. So actually that's worded wrong. If there is input. So let me edit that. If there is input, i.e. parameters, generic or method, I always need to do for, yeah. So if I come in here and I don't have any arguments, nor am I returning anything, but notice there's a generic parameter. So you can do this. And I don't know if there's actually an error with what I'm doing here, but you can do this. And so the thing to simply fix this is to say, if there are any parameters to the method or method parameters or generic parameters, just do a for each loop. I'm already doing that in most cases, but I need to handle, if there are no method parameters, there are no generic parameters, then you don't need to do this because there would be only one expectation that they could set, because the only thing that would matter is the return value, whether it's a void or it's actually returning something. Then there's only one to set. So you don't need to worry about looping through that multiple times because there'd be no way for a user to specify a difference between any two expectation settings. They can create a callback and have multiple returns if there's returns, if they want to do that, or have different behaviors, like the first time it's called, do this. If the second time it's called, do this. But the callback method would let you do that. Okay. That would be the only case. So I have to change that as well. Okay. So let's go into my code here, and I have integration tests set up to kind of illustrate this, I think. Is it in generic tests? Where did I put this? I think it was in generic tests. Is that what I called it? Yes, I did. Okay, so this one, and then I've also said something about docs I got to handle as well. This does come from here. It's a entity framework thing. Okay, and this is also interesting because this is illustrative of the fact that this. Why are there so many errors here? Oh, that one, yes, there will be errors. Oh, and that's just never mind. This one's actually failing because I don't have the right code in place, and this is going to illustrate what I was just about to say, which is generating the code. Yes, I should have generated code that I checked to make sure it's actually generating the right thing. But I'm generating something that compiles, but when you try to use it, it actually doesn't work the way you want it to. So this is also a good illustration of an integration test as well. Let's go back down here to my generics generator test. I think this is the one that confused me because I was like, this is working. Why is it not working? But I think what I need to have is something like this. Okay. And this has been around before, this test class, right? Generate when closed, generic. And yeah, I think that was something later. Yeah, this was one I was working on. This was one that was already, okay. So what we want to say, generate when, well, yes. So the name of the test is correct. It just doesn't have the right thing. So let's grab some stuff here. Okay. And we'll do that. Okay. And then we want to have a generic container that does not all of this. We don't need the comments, but we want that. That's the thing that's being problematic. And I think I also have in the test, yeah, that says set things is correct, but there was also another one that I have in the generic tests here, I believe. That one fails. And then generic container, generic container. Why does this fail? Is it the same? Oh, this one, yeah, this one's interesting. So do we have, yeah, let's put the run back because we want to handle both these cases. We want to make sure that these are both being done correctly. And it doesn't have to be a class per se. It's how the method is being handled. So the same thing would happen if you have an interface. The rest of these, I think, succeed, if I remember right. Let me just run these tests real quick. So one pass through fail. We know that one fails. We know that one fails. This one also fails, but this one's successful. Of different types for a return. Oh, is this because it's the same thing, I think? Yeah, it's T run, T return, where T return is equal to new. Yep, same thing. This one is fine. Okay, so what we also want, though, is a test just to say, you know, how is the code generated for, and it's not necessarily a generics test, it's a method test, I think. So we want to have two sets of tests here. We want to say generate when no parameters exist, generate when one parameter exists, and generate when one generic parameter exists. And these are all for a method. Okay. I just want to remember what I'm thinking here right now. Okay, so we'll do that. Coming back to here, what would happen when we do this? So we put that there, we put that there, we put that there. And first thing it's going to do is generate code, which is fine. We'll then copy and paste that in. Okay, let's copy and paste the code. And then it's going to succeed, but we actually want it to fail. If that makes sense. We want it to fail with what we have for what we know is coming. Okay. So let's do this and do this dance and blah, blah, blah. Okay. I am getting faster at this, I think. If I did this as an interface, it'd be slightly less code, but whatever. Okay, now it should pass. Okay, it did pass. But you can see here in this method, it's not, for one thing, it's not iterating. We have to change that. But for the other thing is that this is just automatically assuming it should be casted to that. This goes, oh yes, this is a generic. And so it will do, is it this, and then do that. And for the return, is it that, and it will do that. Because, you know, like I realized, oh yeah, you can have multiple different types passed in. I just have to pick this up cleaner. So that's the first thing we're going to do is fix that. But then we're also going to make it so these are handled. This one, we just want to make sure the casting is correct. Okay. So off to the weeds. Where am I doing this? Where am I doing this? It's got to be in the builders and it's got to be in create. And again, we don't care about makes because makes don't matter. Probably, let's look in the value builder. I mean, for the value or void, I think it's the same thing because they both, well, the value just has more because it's returning a value. So where in the world? Build method validation with parameters. Build validation with no parameters. Well, guess what? I don't think it matters. So, because with no parameters, we do what? Ah, yes, we do this. Wah, wah. That's wrong. If method parameters length is greater than that, or method.type parameter. Oh, generic? Is that what I called it? Wait, what is this? It's got to be one of my models, right? Yeah, method model. These are the parameters. Default constraint, constraints, container, default constraints is generic method. Well, we detect if it's generic. Oh, maybe that's good enough because then we would know if it has, you know, generics or not. But I would have to be grabbing these, right? That doesn't make sense. There's got to be parameters. Or if it's a generic parameter, build method validation with handlers. Because again, the only time we don't care is if I come back. Jeez, where did I go? Why are you going back there? There. The only time we would care is if there are generics. Because you could pass in, like that generic parameter could be none of the parameters for anything and you don't care. So this is the only time where you would not do a for each. Wait a minute. What am I trying to fix here? Am I trying to actually do this one now? Yeah, I am. It's not the thing I want to do. I want to. Well, I guess I'm going to kill two birds with one stone. I already fixed that, I think. And it should now do a for each. But I have got to be able to figure out what the type of this is, right? Ah, yes. Yes. If the parameter type is a type, oh God. A parameter type has a type kind, but does it have fully qualified name, flattener, include generics? It's got to know. Do I not capture that all the way? Ref like toString type kind. So the problem is here is I need to be able to say, yes, it's a type parameter. This is exactly the problem. Or is this parameter using any generics? Okay. And more to the point, it has to be generic. If it can't be lists of string, okay? Because that would be a type parameter. Type is a type parameter. I love their documentation. Okay, so when I'm ripping through the method and I'm looking at the types of either the return type or the parameter types, I just get them as a type reference model. But I don't have a thing on it that says uses open generic or something like that. And I also got to be a little careful here because I don't think I allow open generics for types that you give me. You have to specify like a list of string. You can't say a list of T because I don't have a way to say, well, and that might in and of itself be a limitation, but there's something in the back of my head that's going, I did this on purpose, which you can't mock open types. Maybe I can, I don't know. But what I really want to say here is a type can be based on, can have multiple generic values. And those generic values can have generic values. And those generic values can have generic. I mean, you could have like a list of a T, or like a dictionary of a T and a dictionary of a T and a K, where the T and the K were both being passed in. And you got to dive down below to see all. Now you could say that if I found the first level, yeah, but I could have dictionary string where the key is a dictionary string and K. That would then also mean I got to go up to where all those generic definitions are, or generic parameters are in the method. So I need to be able to say, is this type? So I think I got a couple things here. Let's look at the models. So if I go to the models and I look at a method model, yeah, is generic method is generic method. If I look at method dot generic or type parameters, it gets the type parameters of methods. It gets a, yeah. So I don't think I use this anywhere. Okay, so wait. So I have parameters, and I say is based on this. So I get parameter models. So if you come back here, this is a parameter model. Okay, so I could say, oh, is based. Why? Well, you're passing it in. And then you get a type. And that type, does it expose it anywhere? No, it doesn't, but we could. We could. So if we expose it on a type reference model, then we could say all the way back up here, we could say if parameter.type.is based on type parameter, then we could say this. We could say either the type kind is a type parameter or it's based on a type parameter. And we could do the same thing here for parameters. And I bet, yeah, we do the same thing here. So I'm going to stop here with this episode, but I've got progress. So let's note taking. So we need to expose on a type reference model, the value. Okay. Then let's back up here. No. Then in mock method value builder and mock method value builder dot use this to determine if, oh yeah, because if it's not, then we do this. If it is, then we do it, if a safe cast should be done. And we also need to do that in build method handler. Okay, because we need to say here in mock method and build method handler, because this is in mock method value builder. Yep. Use this to determine a safe cast. Okay, so I think that's the strategy. And then that should, the one thing I noticed though is in type reference model. Yeah, so if it's based on the type and it's a pointer, then we do this. We can just expose this and that should be easy. So, okay, I'm going to do that in the next episode and try to dive deeper into this and get this all fixed. And amazingly enough, I think I might have fixed the other problem, which was if you have more params, so that I think we already inadvertently have solved that one, but we'll have to run the test to make sure that actually happens. Thank you all for watching. Leave comments and questions below. See you in the next episode.